There are two fundamentally different ways of building software or SaaS. I differentiate between self-serve and high-touch or white glove. You may or may not have heard these terms before or experienced them yourself in your own journey of building software and a software company. It breaks down to the way of how your users are experiencing using your tool and how you are interacting with your users and customers. Self-serve, on the one hand, is this idea of you have a software, it has pricing options, users very autonomously sign up for the tool and use it without much interaction from you. You may do some customer support, answer support tickets and so on, but overall it's very self-serve. On the other hand, there's the high-touch approach, or white glove. It's called white glove because it resembles what a butler does. A butler has white gloves, right? It's the approach where you are very close to your customer, servicing them, and make sure that they have everything they need. Sometimes you also call this done for you. You do sales calls, you hop on manual onboarding calls, and provide a lot of service along the way. So therefore you have a lot of touch points. Obviously, the two of those approaches both come with their own trade-offs, advantages and disadvantages each. And they kind of are opposing approaches in a way, right? It's one side of the spectrum and the other side of the spectrum. Therefore, I think it's worth a look of thinking about how you want to build your company and approach engaging with your customers. To put some light on the trade-offs, for self-serve, of course, there are plenty of advantages, which are it's very scalable. It's kind of the dream of an entrepreneur to have something that just scales by itself without him doing any manual additional effort, right? So essentially, the output is decoupled from the input. And that's how often software gets exponential results easily, or also other kinds of offers like info products, etc. On the other hand, it's very hard to actually pull that off and build something that is fully self-serve, or very much so at least. Because in order to do so, you have to know your customer very, very well, and you have to know that because that's what you're building your product off, right? On the other hand, with high touch, white glove, exactly this problem is solved. Since you're interacting with your customer very much, almost service-like, you get to know what their desires are, what kind of features they're wishing for, what kind of bugs they're encountering. It's much easier, I think, to build a strategy around this for these reasons. On the other hand, it's much less scalable since you cannot multiply yourself. Well, you can kind of by delegating, but you get the idea, right? Even then, you have to proportionally scale with headcount in order to serve your customers. Not to forget the huge advantage of much higher cash flow and being able to charge much more for a high-touch service, since services just generally convey much more value by default than self-serve offers, because your customers appreciate and know that there is someone doing all the work for them. This whole balance, I would call it, between the two has been a major topic for me building Stellar AI from the very start, to be honest. And it's one that's very difficult to crack, and there is no obvious answer, I think. There are stories of people who start out with either of those and then pivot or expand into the other approach later on in their journey, or they never do, they just stick to one. So there is really no true answer to it. From what I'm thinking, what I've learned building a couple of SaaS tools and software products and apps is that I would recommend anyone to start off with a much more service-based approach. It's because of the advantages it gives you that it makes it so appealing. You can charge much more, which puts you in a much quicker position of being able to live off of your company than with a self-serve product, potentially. Also, you get to learn much more and much faster since you're interacting so much with your customers, which may be very beneficial for you, especially if you're starting out and have much less knowledge about the space that you're building in and just generally the market. But then again, that's just my approach, and that's what took me from where I started to where I'm currently am. This may also be appealing to you if you're starting to build your own product or are already doing that. I'm actually very curious to hear your own thoughts on this topic. Are you building something? And if so, what do you think is a better approach? Are you focusing on one, neglecting the other one completely, or also striking a balance? And if so, how do you do it? Let me know down below in the comments. And by the way, I've started to post on a daily basis. I've started this video series of daily shorts. Check out my YouTube shorts or also find me on my other socials. I will link them below. Thanks for watching, subscribe for updates, and see you soon.